So the big question everybody is asking, how can I get enlightened, right? And in my experience, there are two cases of enlightenment on this planet, and I'm going to talk about, because I don't think that's obvious for many people, because it took me a while to realize this myself, and I'm going to talk about these two cases in this video and lay out how it works. And I can start with my personal experience with this, and I've been on the borderline of enlightenment for many years now, and I have peaked into non-duality levels with Satori's, longer lasting Satori's. I have personal experience with the non-duality levels, and so I know how it is there, and I peaked into it. And I also been up close and personal with 3 different enlightened teachers from very different parts of the world. And I also have had the Skype sessions, one-on-one sessions with different enlightened teachers online. So I had pretty much a lot of experience with this, and I also researched a lot. Read a lot of books and stuff about different teachers and how they got enlightened. I read books about it and whatnot. So this is my conclusion about enlightenment and how you can achieve it on this planet. So there are basically 2 main cases of enlightenment, and I'm going to start with the most common one, which is what is called spontaneous enlightenment, where the person is basically just a higher level soul who comes here on a mission, specifically to teach, who volunteer to come here to help, and it's not really relevant for these people in most cases to go through all that much inner stuff and negativity and inner work, because they've already graduated a long time ago. They're old souls, so to speak. They have a lot of experience with many lives. They don't need to go through all that negativity and low-level stuff again, although sometimes they will to a certain degree, but in many cases they just get granted enlightenment, like a bypass from wherever they are on the scale of consciousness. Doesn't really matter, because they can, when their timing is right and their age is right or whatever, they will just be granted enlightenment and they can start doing their mission. And that's not really relevant for most people who listen to this video, because they are in the other type of enlightenment. They're in the other case of it. But it's important to know that there's a big difference between those types of enlightenment and what you might be experiencing and what you might be relevant for your journey. So these spontaneous people, like a good example of this is Eckhart Tolle, for example. He never did much inner work. He just became more and more depressed, didn't really take responsibility for his own depression, tried to heal it. He just became more and more depressed until he collapsed on the floor and just sort of gave up. And then when he woke up from that and he came to himself again, he found himself to be enlightened or awake. So he basically collapsed and spontaneously was granted enlightenment in that collapse and woke up awake again and completely enlightened. So that can happen. That's one way to get spontaneously enlightened. There are many different ways, but that's just one example. You can actually be at the bottom of the scale, a very low level, and go straight from that level to enlightenment. That's just one case of it. There are many, many examples of how can happen spontaneously for these people. So now I'm going to talk more about the more relevant enlightenment for people who listen to this video, which is the graduation, incarnation, enlightenment, as I call it, which means you have a graduation life. And this is what many, many people on this planet have at this time, who came here specifically for this. And Bashar has often said that we are all part of a master class, and we are basically earning our master's degree on this planet because we volunteer to do that. And by doing that, you can increase rapidly in level of consciousness, because the challenges is so high on this planet that you can gain a lot of momentum forward up the scale by taking on that challenge if you succeed. But the problem or the challenge of this kind of incarnation and graduation incarnation is that it's much more harsh, and it can be really rough and difficult, and you have to go through a lot. So that's the difference between the two main cases of enlightenment. In this case, graduation incarnation, that means you came here to go through all sorts of different stuff, and challenges can be really hard. Like my life has been, go through all sorts of stuff, and it will look like your life is sort of all over the place in many cases, because you have to touch base with so many different things. So it can look like chaotic from the outside, and friends and family looking at your life, it might look like it's all over the place and like it makes no sense to them. but you're basically touching base with so many different karmic loose ends and tying up all these loose ends from different lifetimes and whatnot, and learning so many lessons in so condensed ways and so quickly that it can be rough, but it can also look chaotic, and it can be chaotic experience as that. So that's how most people who came here to this mission, they have this kind of life. They have a graduation incarnation. So that means the best you can do is to try to overcome all the challenges you have to face that you get in your life, and basically tackle them, and get as far up the scale as you can. And the highest you can go is the higher 500s, lower 600s, and that it's usually requires some kind of exposure to a Buddha field of a fully enlightened teacher. That really helps if you want to get higher up the scale, because if you've never been exposed to that kind of love and energy, it's difficult to really understand what it is about, and it really helps to be exposed to the Buddha field of an enlightened teacher if you want to get as close to enlightenment as possible. But really, you need only to get into the mid 300s or whatever. That's enough to be part of the graduation. Because there will come a point in the future, and before or around first contact, when that happens, because we can't have first contact with the ETs at the current state. It's going to be a completely different level of reality, and that's going to be like a mass upgrade of everybody who is graduated, who are basically above 51% or above 50% positive. So if you're 51%, that means higher than 330 on the scale. You're going to be part of this ascension. You're going to be part of the graduation class, and you're going to be part of the first contact, according to Bashar and different sources like the raw material. That's the case. So that means there's going to be some kind of mass graduation in which all these people who are part of that, according to Bashar, we're all going to at some point fall asleep. And then we're going to wake up in a completely different reality, in which the physical that we are in now is going to merge with a more dreamlike reality, or the 4D. It's going to be like a mix between 3D and 4D, and all the people who graduated are going to fall asleep, and they're going to wake up in this. It will look like a dream to begin with, and then it will crystallize and become more solid after a little while, and then we're going to get used to that new reality, and in that reality we're going to meet, that's where we're going to meet alien or ETs, the first contact face to face. So as long as you're above 330 on the scale, you're going to be part of this, and that's in that new reality, in the merging of 3D and 4D, everybody is going to be at least in the non-duality levels by default. Even if you didn't achieve that high level in this before that happens, it's not necessary. You're going to experience it, like it's going to be a mass graduation event, so to speak. But before this, historically, the graduation has been mostly on a one-to-one basis, like everybody who come here to try to graduate out of this karmic loop, karmic craziness, they have to work on themselves from life to life, right? And basically graduate and get enlightened at some point. That's been on a one-to-one. But this time is different. It's going to be a harvest of all those who have become a little bit more positive than negative. So that's all that's really required, and it's really important to get up at least into the 300s to be part of that. So that's what I'm trying to help people with on this channel, and what I'm teaching is mostly to help people get from below 200 or 200s levels up into the 300s. Because many people are sort of stuck in the lower levels, even though they have a potential to get higher. So I wouldn't really, seeking enlightenment is fine, okay, if you want, but many people who seek enlightenment, they don't really have that potential in that sense in this life anyway. It's much more important to be realistic and try to get as high as possible on the scale, potentially into the 500s if you can, but at least into the 300s. That's the main focus, because you're going to get to the enlightenment levels anyway as part of the mass graduation that's going to come at some point in the next, I guess, maybe 10 years or something. I'm not sure exactly how or when, but this is what I've gathered from my research and everything, and and to actually be enlightened, I think what is required is that you have to fulfill an experience sort of matrix on the soul levels. Like your soul has to have certain amount of experiences, or like you have this matrix that you have to complete, so to speak, which is what Bashar says many times, like you will have all experiences. It's just, a matter of time. And when you have had enough and all of these experiences that the soul needs, which means it basically needs the full spectrum of possible experiences in one realm, that's when you will graduate into enlightenment. So that's going to happen on a mass level in this life for many people, all the people who are part of the ascension process, So basically, I wouldn't worry too much about getting enlightened and seeking enlightenment and all that. It's much more have a realistic view of it and try to get as high as you can on the scale, because that's the best you can do.